Welcome to the 2022 7SIGNAL Virtual User Conference in Cleveland, Ohio at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm Tom Barrett, CEO of 7SIGNAL. We wish you could be here with us today, maybe next year. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to join us via Zoom. Most importantly, thank you for your business and your feedback over the last 5 years. The 7SIGNAL team and supporting cast of customers are going to make today a memorable event and provide you with actionable information that will bring value to your business, in addition to getting an inside view of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We hope you enjoy the show. With me today is Mike Detling from the Rock Hall. Mike, thanks for allowing us to do our virtual user group here. Mike, what's the largest group you've ever spoken in front of in your life?
We do groups of 20 to 2,000 plus here. I would say the main one largest one would probably be 1,000 people.
All right, well, we have 40 different countries tuning in. No pressure, you can handle it. Yeah. You're a professional. A couple questions for you, and again, this is an amazing facility. From the audience perspective, they're going to want to know, how did the Rock Hall ever end up in Cleveland, Ohio?
So it's actually a pretty funny story, but in 1951, there was a radio DJ named Alan Freed who put together the Moondog Coronation Ball, which was the first multi-artist concert that took place here in Cleveland across the street at Public Hall. And the ticketing systems weren't what they were in modern day now, but they oversold the concert. 10,000 people was capacity, almost 30,000 people showed up. They barred the doors after the 10, and the 20,000 that were left in the streets rioted. That's kind of like a harsh word for it, but for the safety of the people inside, they canceled the show. So the next morning on the radio, Alan Freed, the DJ, called the rioters rockers and rollers because they threw rocks and they flipped cars. And so that term got coined with Cleveland, which was the first place that a multi-artist concert took place on stage. And so when Rolling Stone magazine put out a poll to its readers in the 80s on where this museum should exist, Philadelphia was second place with 20,000 something votes, and Cleveland won with over 2 million.
Wow, that is amazing. I lived here my whole life, and I never knew that part of the story.
It's a good story.
It is a good story. Now, one other question for the audience. I've been here several times, and the exhibits are always changing. Mm-hmm. So what do you think one of the most popular current exhibits are today, in case any of our audience wants to come by?
The Beatles is always the one that stands the test of time. We always have a designated Beatles exhibit that's in the main exhibit hall, but then this year we are also going to expand on that and do the 50th anniversary of Let It Be. And that's going to open in March and be open through the rest of the year. Great,
we'll check it out. Last question, and you'll see this facility from different parts of our video. It's made out of glass and steel with thousands of people. One of the hardest places to manage Wi-Fi. How is the Wi-Fi at the Rock Hall?
It's terrific, no problem.
Hello everyone, my name is Don Cook. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at 7SIGNAL, and as Tom mentioned, we're here at Cleveland's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where thousands of artists have come from around the world to jam, and we're going to do that today for the Wi-Fi industry. And you know what's really jamming, Tom, is the amount of devices, wireless devices, that are entering the market each year. According to the Wi-Fi Alliance, 8 billion wireless devices on the market now, and 3 billion being added each and every year. And that's not just wireless phones, right? That's medical IoT, that's robotics, and so much more.
Don, those numbers are staggering. It's not just about the wireless network anymore, it's also about the end user devices. So in order for our customers to monitor from end to end, they need visibility into the end user device, right, adapters, drivers, roaming behavior, as well as the wireless network. And it's the whole picture that we're trying to give them end user visibility to from end to end.
Right, and that changes by industry, right? So it's not just healthcare, it's not just retail. The customer experience or the patient experience is different from industry to industry.
Exactly, and that's what this whole event's about today. It's about the end user experience, end user monitoring, giving you visibility across the globe on how end users are experiencing Wi-Fi.
If you're not optimizing those devices, you're going to be in the dark.
I'm excited to introduce a new team member today. Our new CTO, Ted Schneider, joins us with over 20 years of SaaS experience and development. Welcome, Ted.
Thanks, Tom. Happy to be here at 7SIGNAL. It's a great, successful SaaS-based company that I'm used to being part of, and the technology here is amazing. The technology helps get through a lot of the problems, get through a lot of the solutions that we're trying to drive and help our customers with the challenges of Wi-Fi that happen on each day.
Gentlemen, it's great to be here today, kicking off the 2022 virtual user group with you. We had a fantastic 2021. That's due in large part to our amazing customers, the partners that we've got around the world, and of course, our awesome team here at 7SIGNAL.
That's right, Don. We have over 350 customers dialed in today from over 40 countries in just about every industry and every vertical.
What made 21 such a special year for the 7SIGNAL family?
Well, Don, first and foremost, our customers. So our customers are the foundation of everything that we're doing, and we certainly appreciate everything that they've done for us and their partnership, and most importantly, the feedback that we get from them from the last user group, and we've actually put that into action, which we'll talk about today. Additionally, we are added to the Gartner Digital Experience Monitoring Market Guide. Also, the Wi-Fi Now Award nomination for Best Enterprise Wi-Fi Solution in the World. We're also a channel first organization. So this year we did invest heavily in distribution partners and value-added resellers around the world. And we won Inc. 5000's fastest growing SaaS company in the world. And again, all of this because of our great customers. So the investment we made this year across the products and platforms was second to none. Specifically, our investment in mobileye came from the ideas from our last virtual user group. And what our customers asked then, this time last year, was we love mobileye on all of our mission critical devices.
Right.
Our workstations on wheels, our scanners, key executives and traveling employees. And what they asked for was the ability to put mobileye on every device and then give them the control to pick and choose which devices we're testing, how long and how often.
Right.
And I'm happy to report in December we launched that capability, and it is now available to every customer on mobileye.
Ted, what do you hope our customers get out of today's event?
First and foremost, that we're listening. Tom mentioned here that we brought some back from the last user group, and we did implement that over the past year. And at the same time, what they're giving us each and every one of these events, we're listening to those users, the analysts, and the folks out there that tell us what solution we need to keep moving for in the market. From that case. And one of the items that we're actually working towards is getting the Wi-Fi 6E in place and getting that ready for the market as it's moving forward.
Right. In some cases, we're going to be ready before the market. In some cases, because of the supply chain issues, right?
Oh, yeah, and that's absolutely the fact. Is that while we are staying ahead of most of the customers, the market itself dictates how quickly these adoption rates happen.
And that's not just with the access points, that's also with the clients as well. Absolutely. They have to be 6E capable.
Absolutely. And the devices have to be available. And you mentioned the supply chain. The devices aren't in the hands of the users. The Wi-Fi 6E isn't gonna be ready for them at the same time.
That's right. So of course, Ted, that dovetails into our product and the usability of our product.
Right. The roadmap we have for the next year or two is quite amazing. Focusing on two immediate items this year are going to be usability, UX, user experience, going out to customers and seeing how they're using the product and getting the feedback on what we can make better. If we can improve the platform in a way that it's quickly for them to diagnose and do forensics on their Wi-Fi, they very quickly can get to the root cause of the problem and resolve it. Secondly, API. There's a whole ecosystem that our customers are implementing our product with. It's going beyond just a few folks checking out Wi-Fi and other people needing to see the data. We need to build out that API even farther than we have today so that it touches other systems. In many cases, we are the source of truth for that data, and that data is either going to be coming in and we're going to manipulate it, compile it, or that data is going to be going out and feeding other systems.
Right, so you mentioned that push versus pull, and those other systems could be AI ops systems, it could be any sort of business intelligence systems, feeding our data into another dashboard so it's readable by executives or IT management or help desks at the end of the day too.
Yeah. Executives need to know things. They want to look at dashboards.
Just the pretty pictures.
Yeah, just the pictures. So we're going to have to add the API so they have a full global view of their whole environment.
So ultimately, that comes down to you can have the greatest products in the world. If they're not scalable, if they're not easily deployable, there's a problem.
Yeah, adding to it with the hardening, we've invested, Tom talked about investing into the products and mobileye, investing in the infrastructure. A huge amount of investment has gone into the infrastructure and the architecture, and we have additional lift this year into the infrastructure to improve hardening, scaling, uptime, all the things that fall into that category to ensure that our customers can access the product as needed.
Right, and what we did last year leading up to this year, we built that whole platform out that we're just going to continue to expand on.
Exactly.
And now let's look at today's agenda. We've got a packed agenda which is just going to fly by. And you're going to want to stick around because we're going to give you all a chance to win some prizes along the way with trivia questions and our third annual Name That Tune competition at the end of the event today. First, we're going to set the stage right with our Chief Wireless Officer, Jim Vada. He'll be making enterprise Wi-Fi predictions for 2022 with Rocky Gregory from Nike and Shannon Kurtz with IBM. Next, we'll welcome our VP of Customer Success, Eric Camuli, to the garage. Eric's hosting a virtual roundtable with Eddie Smith, Jamie Franklin, and Barry Smith with the University of Alabama Birmingham Medical Center, and Matt Horn with Armstrong Flooring. The topic? What's working in Wi-Fi and what's not? The roundtable will give you actionable information about what you can do with 7SIGNAL software in your environments to optimize wireless clients, your enterprise wireless LAN, and even home Wi-Fi. Next, our VP of Product, Services, and Customer Success, Simon Renouf, is going to walk everyone through our product roadmap for 2022. I know this is something everyone's been looking forward to hearing about. From there, we'll welcome Ted Schneider back to the garage. Ted will have an in-depth conversation with Jason Perrone from the Madison Square Garden Company, Tony Gudmundson from Kaiser Permanente, and Michael Usher with the University of California, Santa Cruz. They'll be discussing Wi-Fi monitoring metrics and success KPIs for three very different audiences, from customers and students to colleagues, patients, and clinicians. Once we breeze through the agenda, Eric Camuli, our VP of Customer Success, will join us again, one last time, but this time he'll have a guitar in his hand. And he and Heather Dremel, our digital marketing manager, will host our third annual rock and roll themed Name That Tune event. And everyone will have a chance to win 7SIGNAL merchandise. But right now, Elizabeth Roberts, our Zoom expert, is going to explain how you can use Zoom to ask questions and utilize helpful links that are dropped into chat.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us today. We've got some really fun and very thematic trivia questions for you today. So the first one is actually about the Rock Hall itself. So let's get that trivia question launched. First trivia question here, what does the Rock Hall and the Louvre have in common? Our options are their shape and size, the architect, or the decade of creation. And you can all just pretend that there's Jeopardy music happening.
I guess it goes without saying, but there is merch available for all of these trivia questions, just like our normal Wednesday webinars, except this time it will be official Rock Hall merchandise. I've got vinyl albums, I've got t-shirts, I've got little guitars that sit on your desktop. So lots of fun stuff today.
All the good stuff. Awesome. So looks like we did pretty well. It looks like the competition was really between the shape and size and the architect. This is a little bit of a trick question because you could go either way, but we were looking for the architect. Little color on this answer here. So I.M. Pei was a Chinese American architect raised in Shanghai who designed both of those structures. He has tons of famous works like the Hancock Tower in Boston, the National Gallery of Art in DC. From 1990 and up until his passing in 2019, he transitioned to a role in a firm that focused mostly on museum architecture. So he designed the Louvre for the new president of France in the 80s and the Rock Hall in Cleveland in the 90s. So good job, everyone. I'm looking forward to getting you some swag.
Very cool. Thank you very much, Heather. Let's see if we can get Jim Vada up here. He's up first. Jim Vada is our Chief Wireless Officer here at 7SIGNAL. Jim, who's your favorite rock and roll band?
Well, hey, Don, and hello to everybody out there. Good to be with you today. My favorite band, as you can tell from my background, is actually Primus. But I was a teenager in the 90s, so a lot of great bands back then. Hard to pick just one.
Primus didn't have a wallpaper on Google that you could grab?
Nothing appropriate for a 7SIGNAL user group. We'll put it that way.
That's perfect. Jim, tell us a little bit about your session today and who's going to be joining you.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about our enterprise Wi-Fi predictions for 2020. I'll bring up my screen here and start sharing. And with us today, we've got Shannon Kurtz from the Office of the CIO at IBM, and also Rocky Gregory, the Director of Global Wireless at Nike. Really pleased to have both of you with us today.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump right into a couple of my ideas, then we'll get to Rocky and Shannon in just a minute here. But the big thing for Wi-Fi in 2022, similar to last year, is still Wi-Fi 6E. And just to kind of set the table as to where we are with that, you know, the regulatory approval for indoor APs is there. We have a lot of clients available, or I should say, on the market. And with the recent announcements from Cisco and Meraki, all the enterprise class AP vendors have APs that are released. But there are some challenges still. One is with standard power APs in the AFC system. Those are the APs that will be allowed to use external antennas and operate outdoors. We're still waiting on the regulators to figure that out. And then a couple big issues for Wi-Fi 6E. Apple hasn't released any clients, so that's a notable exception. And the chip shortage has really limited the availability of APs and clients as well. So everybody's got APs out now, but if you want to buy one, you might have to wait 6 months, maybe a year to get something shipped to you. So putting those things together, looking at some predictions around what's going to happen with Wi-Fi 6E this year. Last year, I said we'd have Wi-Fi 6E in the iPhone 13. So this year, I'm going to say it'll be in the iPhone 14. And I'll just keep saying that, and eventually I'll be right. I think we'll get the standard power issues resolved, and we'll have more flexibility with the APs we deploy, probably starting next year. And I think there will be a footing gain for Wi-Fi 6E in the enterprise this year, particularly to supplement capacity in areas like lecture halls and auditoriums and indoor arenas. I think large public venues that are really starved for capacity and spectrum will be some of the early adopters within the confines of the low power indoors rule. So if you're doing underseat APs with internal antennas in an indoor arena, Wi-Fi 6E is going to be attractive. And a big thing that Wi-Fi 6E is going to drive is the deployment of WPA3 and OWE. Those things have been out for a couple years, but haven't really been deployed in the enterprise yet. But the first Wi-Fi 6E AP that gets deployed is going to require that those things get sorted out, because of course those are the only security schemes available in the 6 gigahertz band. And along with that is going to come plenty of bugs. We'll have challenges with WPA3, which requires protected management frames and the new AP discovery mechanisms in 6 gigahertz, cutting edge code. There will be some bugs and pain that come along with Wi-Fi 6E this year. So I want to just talk about the generations of Wi-Fi for a minute here. you know, a lot of enterprises have either just deployed Wi-Fi 6 APs or are just about to. And so the Wi-Fi 6 will be the majority of enterprise Wi-Fi networks before year's end, if it isn't already. But at the same time, we're already getting Wi-Fi 7 marketed to us before there's a standard, before there's a Wi-Fi Alliance certification. We're hearing about Wi-Fi 7. And then, of course, Wi-Fi 6E is becoming more of a reality this year as well. So I think it starts to challenge the prevailing notion that every 5 years we need to refresh our APs and roll out the latest PHY. Certainly with the progression from 802.11b to G to N, there were really good use cases and drivers for deploying those new generations of Wi-Fi. But when we look at the benefits that Wi-Fi 7 might provide over Wi-Fi 6, it's really small. I mean, the headline for Wi-Fi 7 is 40 gigabits per second as the top speed, which probably isn't realistic, but that's what's in the marketing. So what is the use case for a business to need 40 gigabits per second at the access layer wirelessly? It's probably not very much out there. So I think, a good comparison for thinking about this is the development of Ethernet technology over the years. So way back in 1998, during the golden age of rock and roll, if you will, the Ethernet standard for gigabit Ethernet was released. And that continues 24 years later to be the dominant Ethernet technology at the access layer. And I don't think that's going to change for years to come, despite the fact that newer and newer technologies continue to be released, faster generations of Ethernet that do serve purposes. But at the access layer, we've kind of settled on gigabit Ethernet, and it still works really well. So I think at a certain point, we're going to kind of step off the upgrade cycle with Wi-Fi as newer and newer technologies come out with Wi-Fi 7 and 8 and so forth, and say, well, what is the PHY that really serves my purposes and meets my requirements best? And I think Wi-Fi 6, I'm a little bit of a contrarian here, because we're hearing that Wi-Fi 7 is actually, people are going to skip Wi-Fi 6 for Wi-Fi 7. I think the opposite might be true. I think people are going to get to Wi-Fi 6 and say, this is great. We don't need, Wi-Fi 7 is fast, but do we need it? We're going to stick with Wi-Fi 6 for years to come. And maybe just a couple other things there's to keep an eye on. There's some kind of new and novel use cases for Wi-Fi besides just network access. 802.11 fine timing measurement for indoor location is really interesting. It's deployed in the real world with Android handsets, and is a really good technology to use Wi-Fi natively for indoor positioning. 802.11bf Wi-Fi sensing, that's something really interesting that's, I think, going to be in the headlines this year. And something that's still in development but has a lot of interesting use cases is 802.11bc broadcast services. It's a way for an AP to share information and advertise information to unassociated clients that it just happens to be around. Great. So with that, I think we can have a little discussion. I'll stop sharing and bring back Rocky and Shannon. So Rocky, why don't we start with you? Great to have you here today. So what do you think? What do you think the distribution center of the future looks like in terms of Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I think the business of retail for manufacturers of consumer goods has changed. This year, these past couple of years, there's been a move with a lot of companies, Nike included, for direct to consumer. So rather than going into a big box store, finding the new Jordans, I guess Jordans don't go in big box stores, but your next pair of Nikes, we're seeing a lot of ship it to me, like we do with Amazon in apparel. And so that was a shift in the industry that kind of had to happen all at once. So to do that, and to compete with companies who offer 2-day shipping for everything, the distribution centers have become a lot more key and critical for the direct consumer experience rather than the warehousing before it gets shipped off to the retailer. So that's been a big shift for us. And it means that distribution centers they've always been one of the absolute keys of the supply chain, but moving goods through them is just having to accelerate. So I see my view of what's going to happen in distribution centers in the next couple of years. We're already seeing, but it's going to get bigger, which is automation. We're seeing a lot of robots in distribution centers now. Any company that you can think of is working with robots, and the density of those bots is getting, there are more and more going into a distribution center. So special purpose bots to move a pallet, special purpose bots to get a tote, bots to do packaging, to ship. So that's a big move that we're seeing. The other piece is kind of the stuff that we think of as traditionally done, wired, the machine management. So rather than having this big, beefy, old PLC, device that talks to the machine, it's starting to go over Wi-Fi, and that's helping to keep the distribution center moving and to get the product out the door. So that's a big change that we're seeing. So traditionally, when you look at distribution centers, the way that it's been done kind of heretofore until the last few years is I need coverage, right? I have these RF scanners, and person goes, scans product, moves it to shipping, ships out the door to the customer. And so those were the clients that you worried about, and those were the only clients that you worried about. It could be that a foreman had some sort of tablet, but really we're seeing kind of this move from those handhelds, those scanners, total coverage model to, okay, we've now got robots, and the robot has 2 cards in it, and that wireless adapter is 2 inches from the ground, and you designed for person height to be using these RF guns. So we're seeing density in distribution centers, which is kind of the opposite of the design model that most distribution centers were built for. We're going into dense client rather than just give me consistent coverage so that these handheld scanners can do their job. So that's a big difference from the architecture standpoint of how we're having to design.
Sure. And are you seeing an impact from having 7SIGNAL help out in those circumstances?
We are. It's now part of our standard build for a distribution center is a fairly dense deployment of Sapphire eyes, and it's challenging having a really widely distributed enterprise with a bunch of different types of environments, and like everyone in the industry, very lean on people power. And so it's been a force multiplier to us that we've traditionally had folks who work with the warehouse management system, do a great job of that, work with the PCs, know some about the network, and we're talking folks on site through doing a packet capture. And that's beyond kind of what you should expect. And so for us to be able to, hey, something looks weird, we're getting calls about these devices disconnecting, okay, what does the I see, has been huge for us. And so it's standard go-to, very dense. We find that pilots within DCs will happen in given areas of the DC, and we at corporate IT may not know that this pilot is happening. So we have to go dense. We have to have them everywhere. All of a sudden there are 300 clients under an access point that no one told me were going to be there. So I've got an eye that can keep an eye on it and alert me when there are issues because of it. So
Awesome.
Yeah, very helpful. Force multiplier gives me field people that I didn't have before.
Love to hear that. So let's bring in Shannon. Shannon, thanks for being with us today. I'm curious about your experience at IBM. What does the campus of the future look like at IBM, Shannon?
Hey, Jim, first I have to thank you. I'm not going to be able to get the lyrics of Jerry Was Race Car Driver out of my head for at least 3 days now.
Excellent.
And I also want to add to the trivia question that IMPay also designed the IBM buildings in Somers, which were sold a few years ago. But if you're in the New York Somers area, you could tell that the shape or the roofs of those buildings resembled some of the Louvre. But going back to your question, so the future of the campus. So for us, the future is all around software-defined networking, automation, and analytics. We already provide Wi-Fi everywhere. It's controller-based. We're now upgrading to programmatic OS levels so that we can really take advantage of that with software-defined networking and automating as much as possible. And we're also using APIs into all of our tools, including the APIs into 7SIGNAL, so that we can also perform our own analytics to drive some of that automation, and then also just to identify maybe potential security threats. And so if you combine that with our workforce now, which is constrained, we really need to automate as much as possible and get as close to no-touch deployment, no-touch support to be able to effectively manage our enterprise network. We've already applied the analytics and automation to some of our wired network. We went across and we disabled all of our unused Ethernet ports, and this is before COVID, but it's especially taken off. But even before COVID, we were able to reduce 85% of our wired ports because the client base is now pretty much all Wi-Fi. And now with COVID, I think we've now been able to eliminate or disable 98%. But anyway, we're on the path focused on software-defined network, automation, analytics, and 7SIGNAL's been sharing their roadmap that really aligns with that nicely. The enhancements that you have focused on plug and play, now the user experience as well. We're really looking forward to 7SIGNAL being a key part of that SDN automation analytics. And then as you were talking earlier, Wi-Fi 6E. So for the more immediate future, but like you, I think that we're going to stick probably with 6E for a while. Although I agree, we've kind of been years ago set the direction or perception with management that Wi-Fi really needs to evolve on a 3-year pace, not a 5-year pace. And that's just going to continue for a while. But with Wi-Fi 6E, we're going to be focused on starting to roll that out. It's going to take quite a while. What your infrastructure supports and what your client supports are going to differ for quite a while. And that is going to introduce a lot of problems. And so we're also looking for 7SIGNAL with both the mobileye agent and with the Sapphire sensors to help us quickly identify those problems, get to the root cause, and fix it. And like Rocky was talking about, it's not just the client issues, but the Wi-Fi surveys of the past. We're expecting an AP access point placement probably is not going to support 6E in the best way. And then the examples Rocky gave also of where your clients are and the adapters are and where you're connecting also differ. So we're also looking that as we roll out Wi-Fi 6E, that the 7SIGNAL products also identify, where we have coverage holes, where performance isn't ideal, because we're all about proactively finding it and fixing it and not waiting for customers to complain and then initiating the steps to resolve that.
Great. Yeah, and you mentioned our roadmap. Simon Renouf, our VP of product, will be here in a few minutes to give us an update on that. Looking forward to that. And so why don't we go back to Rocky? Shannon just kind of gave us a really good view of their campus of the future. Nike really considers its campuses small cities in a way. So what future does IoT and other wireless technology have? What does that look like on your campuses? And does 7SIGNAL have a role there as well?
Yeah, and our Portland, our Beaverton campus, our world headquarters where kind of it all began, it's 22,000 people in and out a day. And that's larger than my hometown. Not that my hometown was big, but it's a lot of people coming and going. And so it's, we've got 75 buildings kind of clumped together throughout Beaverton, Oregon. And so we've got a lot of real estate to cover with, everyone could use more headcount, but with, a finite amount of people to cover it. And we did a very large Wi-Fi 6 upgrade for most of the campus a couple of years ago and haven't seen it with people on it yet because of COVID. And so the Sapphire Eyes, we've had this opportunity to really get ready and see what's going to happen. And part of that has been prep for the onslaught of IoT stuff. And it's kind of daily, my role really is to protect the airwaves, right? And help my business partners bring in the solutions that help do this campus of the future and that is, that's fun to come to work at. And, but we also have to protect that employee connectivity, which similar to Shannon is the larger share of our connectivity is Wi-Fi today. So we get the IoT stuff coming on board, and we had a kind of a rogue device, not in the idea of a rogue AP, but this sensor that was stood up in a building, and all of a sudden our calls from that building just went nuts. And it turned out it was a safety device, an occupancy sensor, to make sure there aren't too many people in a conference room. And it was destroying our Wi-Fi. So typically you worry about that in 2.4, it was destroying our 5 gigahertz. And I only have so many people and the campus is huge. So we were able to sit and look at the Sapphire Eyes and see this IoT thing that's plugged into the wall, so I don't see it on the Wi-Fi network, is really causing damage to the user experience. So there's kind of the helping to protect the airwaves to give the customer, the internal customer, the best experience. And having the IoT stuff coming at us has really, we have to be agile and we have to be ready for, okay, now we want to do line busting in the restaurants on campus. So we need a network for it. We are doing, in our innovation labs, we have, some pretty expensive high-tech machinery that we need to be able to get to from the production network. How do we do that? And, you know, it's not the customer's fault, but they can't get connected. They bring in their own device to get connected. And it's that the device that they're trying to use can't get on our 1X network. So we're going to bring in our own home AP as a solution to IoT. And so that's been a change, that the number of rogue access points has kind of hit the roof. And using 7SIGNAL helps us when we're doing that triage of, okay, connectivity again went down in this building, being able to go into the Sapphire eyes and kind of see how they're connecting, and do the triage and usually the resolution before one of my engineers has to go out. It's huge for us. It's the way that we can support this huge campus.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And we're running up against the clock, but I wondered, Heather, if we maybe had time for one quick question from the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, it looks like we got a shout out that came through. So got to mention that. Josh Corral wanted to give a shout out to Rocky. He says, it's been great seeing you. And of course, we had Rocky respond on our end, crowning you the king of campus Wi-Fi. So congratulations.
That's right. That's right.
So we've got one question from Martin Reynolds, and it looks like he's got a boogie in a little bit. So I want to make sure that we have this question answered. So are there noticeable issues when running Wi-Fi clients that support Wi-Fi 6 on wireless infrastructure where Wi-Fi 6 support is not enabled?
No issues that I'm aware of. They should just operate in 802.11ac mode for the most part. Rocky, any input you want to give there?
Yeah, we did find kind of early into the deployment, luckily, that there are devices that need driver upgrades. A really common chipset, an Intel chipset that's in most Windows boxes, or a big degree of Windows boxes, need a driver update. There's a bug where they can't see an BSSID that's coming across as AX. And so that was a scramble.
There's
Luckily,
actually more
people were at
issues
home.
if you're running Wi-Fi 6 than if you aren't.
Right. Yeah. There have been bumps and bruises, and the return to campus date, I have not slept waiting for it to find out what the bumps and bruises are when we load up the Wi-Fi 6 network.
And Shannon, have you experienced any issues there between 802.11ac and AX?
Not yet, but as Rocky says, there's very few people going into the campus, so we're just waiting for the day. We run into Intel driver issues quite frequently, though, and that's actually one of the things we're trying to work with our client team, is they tried to get away from pushing drivers, files, and even preferred settings, and we're like, we think you've got to push those things, and luckily we have a standard client management system, and they were trying to get away from that. And we're like, no, you're going to have to get back to it because it is going to get so complicated. But we'll know more soon as people return to the site.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Rocky and Shannon. And I think we're ready to transition to our next section.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So that was great. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Shannon. Just an awesome conversation. We're just getting started. So I've got Eric Camuli next to me here in the studio. And before we get to that, I think Heather's got a trivia question for us.
I sure do. Love this. And it goes without saying, we're on the honor system. So no smartphones, no Google Box. Here it comes. All right. When was the term rock and roll coin? Let's get this one started.
That's a tough one. That one threw me off when you were putting these together.
Hell yeah. It's got to be hard. You gotta earn the swag.
Well, if memory serves, and I'd like to think that it does, we gave this answer in the introduction today.
So we're gonna see who was paying attention. And it looks like we were paying attention. Yep. So the answer, 1951, the term rock and roll was coined then by a Cleveland radio DJ named Alan Freed. He worked for a major radio station during a time when large stations were known to only play music by white artists to cater to their white audience members. So there's your answer and a little bit of history for you. So I think with that, we got to ask Eric who his favorite rock and roll band is before we get this party started.
Wow. Okay, Heather, thank you so much. Very excited to be here. You know, I grew up kind of an 80s hardcore guy. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but my favorite band growing up was The Replacements from the Minneapolis area. So there you have it. I don't know if anybody out there is a fan, but I'll tell you, I sure was. So.
I was a fan. I got your back. So what do we got you doing today? Who you got joining you on stage?
Yeah, so very exciting. We have the team from the University of Alabama Birmingham Medical Center. So that would include Jamie, Eddie, Barry, and it's going to be fantastic. Then we've got Matt Horn from Armstrong Flooring that we're going to talk to next. So this is outstanding. We're going to start with the team from UAB Medical first. How you guys doing out there?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Great to see you guys. All right, so team from UAB Medical, just first question, tell us a little bit about your network, the size, the scope, and what you guys deal with out there down in Birmingham.
We've got our facility is about 9 million square feet of wireless network we're running at. We've run about 70 buildings that we have to deal with throughout the campus. We have over 23,000 employees. I said we have up to 16 to 20,000 unique clients a day. Right now we're running about 360 Sapphire Eyes throughout our multiple buildings to give us some input to that. We run in mobileye also. We got about 150 clients on mobileye and looking to grow more.
Wow. Fantastic. Wow. That's it's extensive. So, think for a moment here. This section is all about, what was going well and what wasn't going well. And obviously you brought 7SIGNAL into the equation to help out with some things that you had some issues with. Why don't you explain the use case for 7SIGNAL for us?
Well, right at the beginning, we had a lot of issues with, everything's blamed on the wireless. Everybody knows that. Every time something happens, oh, it's a wireless issue. So we had to bring, we had a couple of different devices, EEG machines to our WOWs, stuff like that. They'd always, have issues. Looking throughout, different type of environments to figure out some kind of client to help us look at this problem. Came across and found 7SIGNAL. Read up on 7SIGNAL and their product line, and then started, digging more into it. And then we got into what we could use it for, and then put it on products and was able to fix issues very quickly.
Wow, that sounds awesome. So when you say fix problems pretty quickly, can you guys tell us maybe a story or two or three of how 7SIGNAL was able to help out in your environment with the products that you had?
Yeah, let Barry bring up some stuff. And
yeah, so I mean, we actually have a whole bunch of stories that we could pull from, but for about a year. These guys have been here with some of ours that's out on the floor called WOW cards, or workstation on wheels. It's a computer, a wireless computer that the nurses push around from patient to patient to get information stuff on the floor. And constantly they would complain about wireless issues. They would complain that there's dead spots. They would complain that the connection was weak in this area or that area. And we would go out constantly and do surveys and see that there's plenty of signal, there's plenty of everything, not a lot of interference or very low interference, utilization, things like that. And so anyway, we installed the Sapphire Eyes in the areas where they had some issues. And we started seeing a lot of retransmits from the client. We started seeing excessive retransmissions from the client. We started seeing some adjacent channel interference that
was that we really didn't see before. I don't know if for anybody that doesn't have the Sapphire eyes, you can dig really deep into those and get like a whole lot of data points. And so we pulled a lot of extensive data points and were able to see things that normally you wouldn't see in things like Cisco Prime, or that you wouldn't see in just a basic wireless survey. Signal is there, but is the interference, there too. So anyway, with all of that, we have started the process, where actually this is still an ongoing thing. We started the process of taking we have a 40 megahertz wide channel on the 5 gigahertz. We're going to go down to 20. That should get rid of the adjacent channel stuff. We have contacted the vendors that make these WOW cards. They're Linux based, and they're we also discovered with mobileye and the Sapphire Eye, we discovered that the Linux that's on these is very, very basic. It's just a kernel and a simple GUI, and that's about it. No adjustments can be made on the wireless whatsoever. So we contacted the vendor to see if they can help us out on that end to try to dial it in. Because other devices, that was the thing that we would always say, these 5 devices work perfectly fine in these areas that you say have dead spots, but this one doesn't. So something's got to be going on here. So anyway, with the Sapphire Eye, we were able to kind of dig down and make changes, or in the process of making changes that we know that's going to help the whole situation.
Wow, that is fantastic. Yeah, a hospital is a challenging environment. And not only that, but we're talking about mission critical Wi-Fi here, those workstations on wheels, when you've got nurses and clinicians that are having issues. I mean, it is, in many respects, kind of a drop everything type of an emergency. So it's really exciting to hear how you guys are using the system in order to drill in and figure out truly what's going on. That's awesome. One more story. Can you guys tell one more story of maybe how our 7Signal products were able to assist in your environment?
With the mobileye software, putting it on some laptops, we had some issues. We were getting ticket after ticket after ticket coming in for this one area in our rehab center, just talking about, oh, the Wi-Fi stops working or it just locks up. So we were able to get with the people who manage the laptops, got mobileye put on there, and after gathering data from it, we saw that these particular wireless cards that the laptops were using had a bad driver going with them. So we did some research on the drivers, found tons of posts and forums about how they just have all these issues, and was able to find a reliable driver set for it. And I mean, with mobileye being able to pinpoint that, as soon as we got those drivers updated, all those issues stopped.
Yeah,
wow.
We were heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, a lot of folks out there don't realize how many important decisions those adapter driver combinations make. So, that's just a great story. Glad to hear that. Guys, I'm so grateful for you volunteering to come on here and talk a little bit about your story. Awesome stuff. Thank you, team from UAB Medical. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to transfer on over to our friend Matt Horn over at Armstrong Flooring. Matt, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. So glad to see you. So let's start out with a similar question. Tell us a little bit about the scope of your network, the size of your network, and what all is going on at Armstrong Flooring.
Sure. So I think we're probably a little bit smaller, at least in terms of user population compared to the UAB group here. But, we're a mid-sized manufacturing firm. We make flooring products for commercial and residential. So, chances are if you've been in a hospital or a school or, grocery store, you probably walked on our products at one point or another. But, we're, as far as the network goes, we're predominantly a Cisco shop. All of our wireless running 9800 controllers, and got a variety of access points, different, 3700 series all the way up to the new 9000 series APs. But we have a variety of different environments. So we have your standard office settings, where you have for people coming in. We're starting to do a lot of hybrid work now. And then we have a manufacturing floor, which can be challenging because we have a lot of, big motors and all kinds of equipment that's, creates a lot of weird interference. And then we also have warehouses, which can be, as like Rocky from Nike knows over there, it's can be very, very challenging in trying to make things work properly in those environments. So that's that's the on-premise stuff that we have, and then we're a hybrid company at this point. So we have a very large portion of our user population that works from home, full time, or comes in the office once or twice, if they're nearby, and that's really given us a lot of challenges, recently.
Wow, that's great. Tell us a little bit about, again, the use case for 7SIGNAL. Obviously, there were issues, there were problems, a lot of finger pointing going on. Is it this? Is it that? You tell us about the solution that you chose from 7SIGNAL, and then what you were hoping to achieve with it.
Yep. So we ended up using the mobileye client was the solution that we picked, and our main use case that we had initially was for remote users. So we have contact center agents, that handle all of our customer service calls. And prior to COVID, they were working full time in the office. And to complicate things, we were in the middle of a phone system migration at the time, where we had an on-premise system, and then we migrated to a cloud-based solution. And so everybody going to work from home, so we started getting some complaints with people having call quality or dropped calls and things coming to contact center, and obviously that's a terrible experience for your customer. So we were digging to find a solution to find a way that what was going on here, because it wasn't everyone across the board. We had some users who didn't have problems at all, and other people that were having constant issues. And when they're on premise, there was a lot of things that we could do to help troubleshoot those issues, because we had access to all, we controlled everything end to end, so we could see everything. But where we really struggled is when people were working from, home or wherever it was that they were at the time, where you just don't have that level of visibility, and trying to get in and, do troubleshooting on their machine is just, it's a scenario. So, yeah, so that was definitely the primary one.
That's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about some of the things that you can see in a person's environment when they're working from home or working remotely. Is there a favorite aspect of mobileye that you found particularly helpful when trying to help folks working remotely?
Yeah, so I mean, we've seen some people that, you don't realize how impactful your neighbors are on your wireless experience. I know we've had some places where, people who lived in apartment buildings, and, you see that there's like, in 7SIGNAL, you can export the list of, at any point in time, how many BSSIDs that you're seeing, and all the channels and everything is on. And at times, I think we're in the one user, we saw it was like 140 BSSIDs that were, that their wireless adapter was seeing. And, there were so many of them. I won't name the ISP, but they're very prevalent, and they have the tendency to deploy the exact same wireless configuration everywhere. And you see, everything is on the exact same channel for all your neighbors. And if they didn't, the users didn't change it in a populated area like that, it is just an awful experience for the user.
Wow. Yeah, we see that everywhere. And these ISPs, they need to wise up. They need to get a little bit of education so that they can help their customers. That's right. For sure. Matt, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about Armstrong. Awesome stuff. I'm going to toss it back on over to Heather now. And Heather, are there any questions for our groups here today, the team from UAB Medical, or for Matt at Armstrong Flooring?
So yes, so longtime Wednesday webinar attendee Anders. Hi, Anders. Actually just had a quick comment. Nobody mentioning Radiohead or about the album Signals by Rush, but please no Radio Gaga. Classic Anders. So we do have a couple questions. We got like one apiece. One's for Matt and one's for our friends at UABMC. So Matt, for you, how have you shared 7SIGNAL results with others in the organization?
So we actually, it wasn't necessarily with the organization, but we had some of those users that were working from home that once we were able to rule out that their issue either, was related to wireless, so we could kind of give them some recommendations, hey, change your channel on your wireless router to this, or, that's where there's not going to hit interference. So we used it like that. But one of the more interesting use cases was that really busy apartment complex. So that, aside from the, the fact that it was very busy in the wireless space, we had them plug into their, do a hardwired connection, rule out wireless. And the 7SIGNAL agent was able to actually, do regular polling to test the bandwidth that they were getting. So, this user, thought that, I'll just, call my provider and upgrade my speed, instead of having a 50 meg, I'll get a 500 meg or 100 or a gig or whatever that they wanted. But, even with them putting the speed increase, they were not getting any kind of improvement in their speed because there was so much saturation on that leg from the ISP because it was a busy segment of the ISP's network. So, they were able to, not waste their money spending more with the internet provider that's giving them terrible service. And then they were able to kind of seek out another provider that wasn't so bad in the area. But so that was one way that we were able to, share those results. So we had hard evidence to prove what.
Matt, isn't it funny how the ISP always says you need to upgrade?
Yeah. Yeah, in this case, it wouldn't have done them any good. They could have thrown all the money at them they could afford, and it wouldn't have made a difference.
Right.
All right. So for UAB team, our friends, Jamie, Eddie, and Barry, how has clinical environment changed since installing 7SIGNAL? What steps are you taking to resolve issues?
With the 7SIGNAL, with all the data that we're able to pull, like I said, we've already made some preliminary changes to our entire network, to the controllers that we're going to be rolling out here very soon. With the mobileye, we only have 150 licenses currently, but we're working to get more. So we're putting them out into the most, troublesome areas with the most troublesome devices to see if they can help us, which it has. So yeah, I mean, it's just been a process of seeing what is really out there and then adjusting to it. And to go back to the thing, that was completely user error. That was the end user device as normal for a wireless issue. It wasn't the network, it was the end user device.
All right, and I think that is it for our Q&A. Oh wait, just as I say that, I think it's a comment from Robert M. How often is network backhaul from the building to the network provider a performance problem? Last question, whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, I think that's probably more of just a general comment about, what we were seeing. But yeah, very often, right? That contention's not always on that, that very last mile. It's on the, backhaul going to wherever it needs to end up at its destination, especially in ISPs.
Awesome. Well, I think that concludes the Q&A and comment section. So Eric, if you want to wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate the opportunity to share with you guys today and have you share with our entire audience. UAB Medical Team, thank you very much. Roll Tide or Go Blazers or whatever you love. And Matt Horn, thanks so much for joining us as well from Armstrong Flooring. Real happy that you guys were here today. Take care.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And War Eagle, by the way.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I know one of you guys is an Auburn fan, another is an Arkansas fan, but we appreciate you all coming. Jamie, Eddie, Barry, thank you. Matt, thank you very much for joining us. Eric, great job. We're going to keep rolling. We've got our VP of product coming up next. Simon Renouf is with us. And Simon, do I need to ask who your favorite band is? Is it AC/DC?
Well, I felt like I had to represent for the Australians today, but yeah, definitely up in my top 5.
Excellent. Well, what do we have you doing today? I think you're doing a product roadmap, right?
That's right. We're going to take a little bit of a dive into things. I think screen to share, but
first we've got trivia.
We do have.
Can't forget trivia. All right. So Elizabeth's helping us out on launching this one. So this one is, when is the day the music died?
This is a great one. I love this question. Heather and I were going over this one and it stumped me for a couple seconds.
Right. Ooh, I think we might have gotten you guys on this one. Haha. Okay. So it was pretty even across the board, honestly, but February 3rd, 1959. So on February 3rd, 1959, American rock and roll musicians Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper J.P. Richardson were killed in a plane crash near Clear Lake, Iowa, together with their pilot. The event later became known as the day the music died, after singer-songwriter Dan McLean referred to it in his 1971 song American Pie. So yep, on that really positive note, let's get into some fun stuff with our product roadmap.
And Michael, I saw your chat in there. We're going to get back to that one during your session too. So yeah, Simon, the floor is yours. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Heather.
Okay, well, I think we're also going to run a little competition here. I've got some famous rock and roll fonts going on through this presentation. So, Heather, did you have something set up there, or you want me to just ask the question?
So I think we'll just kind of track this one as we go. There's no really good way to pull it out throughout the presentation. So I think we're going to have to, once again, go on the honor system.
All righty. Well, we have 8 famous rock and roll fonts. So let's go for who can name the most of them, the bands that they represent as we go through. You've had a bit of time to stare at the first 3 here. And I'll give you a bit more time just to back up a little bit to last year's presentation. Our product goals are being fairly consistent. We are targeting rolling out our experience fundamentals across both of our products. That's MCS, 7MCS for Wi-Fi quality indicator, and MOS as our primary indicator for end-to-end experience. And then connecting those and reframing those, the poor experience for those measurements in terms of the impact time to users. We've introduced flexible licensing for mobileye, which allows our customers to deploy agents everywhere and then choose which devices are actively monitoring and when, and match monitoring levels to business needs. This suits a number of use cases. We'll be building on these in the product over the coming year. We can target a single device if we're reactive troubleshooting. We can target a group of high value devices like the workstations on wheels or devices in a distribution facility for targeted monitoring 24/7. Or we can take a more statistical sampling approach and take a group of devices with different attributes, different operating systems, adapters, drivers, in different locations, and just get a good sample of experience across the locations. So flexible licensing is really setting mobileye up for doing more than just monitoring individual devices and understanding experience across the group. We're also updating our cloud and agent architectures. We want our agents to be more than just dumb data collectors. We want them to be able to identify some and diagnose some of their own issues and be more adaptive in terms of the sampling rates for certain types of problems. And we just want to improve our dashboards and our alarms in general, help our customers identify problems more quickly and drill down into root cause more quickly. Something Shannon mentioned earlier as our last goal here is to improve our configuration capabilities, especially for Sapphire Eye, but also for mobileye, to be more flexible with our thresholds and alarm and service levels, as well as our setup of our eyes. I'm going to jump a little bit into Sapphire Eye. We've just released our IP version 6 support on testing networks, which has been a popular request recently after probably 2 decades of IPv6 being out there. We're seeing deployments now. In the first half, we're focusing on some usability enhancements, simplifying some of our KPI selections, and some improvements to our APIs. We're also intending to bring 7MCS into the analyzer dashboard and position that a little bit in advance of data rates. One reason for that, we believe MCS is a better indicator of general Wi-Fi quality than signal strength and SNR. Those measurements tend to be very variable by different client agents. And data rates, especially with Wi-Fi 6 coming, are not a really good indicator of the general quality of a wireless environment. With Wi-Fi 6 and the ability to use subchannels, you could have an excellent Wi-Fi environment and a very low data rate. Likewise, you could have a low data rate on a different PHY and have quite a poor Wi-Fi environment. So data rate alone is not going to be a good indicator. So we'll bring MCS into Sapphire Eye as well. In the second half of the year, we will have Wi-Fi 6 sensors and software support, including WPA3 and OWE, and analysis for OFDMA performance, as well as support in the 6 GHz band. Finally, we're working on a new dashboard for Sapphire Eye, which we expect in the second half of the year, bringing the IQ dashboard inside of Analyzer, and enhancing the things that customers like about that, but adding some great new features as well as working on our plug and play eyes concept to improve the speed to configure our Sapphire Eyes. Going to spend a little bit more time on mobileye. We have almost completed our experience fundamentals work here. We just released an updated Android version with support for MCS, and MOS for Android will be coming probably in April this year. We might get it in a little bit sooner if we're lucky. The next big feature is locations and AP names and the ability for customers to self-service that. Then we're working on some dashboards and our alarms and thresholds and our API. But rather than harp on that a little bit too much in a boring slide, I thought we might just give you guys a little bit of a backstage pass, and a couple more fonts there for you guys to try to identify before I switch over. But we're going to just take a little bit of a walk through a prototype for mobileye and what's coming over the course of the next 6 months. All right, so this is our device page, which is our most popular page today, looking at an individual device. What you'll notice here is the prominence of Wi-Fi quality, or a MCS metric, bringing that really to the fore to indicate whether a device's wireless experience is good or not. And then being able to still expand that into our normal problem areas, roaming coverage, congestion, and interference to identify the underlying root causes of those problems. Locations will be a new area of our setup menu. And right here we can see our locations in the left column, our access point groupings in the middle. And if we drill in here and we select an access point, we'll also then be able to break that down and see our BSSIDs with their networks and bands being displayed. We'll have the ability here to edit these AP names and locations. And eventually we'll be adding a bulk import feature so that we just can import these relationships. Obviously our mobile clients are seeing the BSSIDs in the air, and so creating that relationship between the BSSID and the physical access point, and then mapping those physical access points into locations is going to be really helpful and set up a foundation for the analysis we want to do at a location level for our customers. One interesting side effect and value of this is that when our clients see new BSSIDs in an environment, they will appear here under this unknown location group. And new APs or new BSSIDs appearing in an environment, broadcasting your SSIDs, could be a new AP. Maybe it's just something that needs to be tagged and needs to be mapped to your locations, or perhaps that's not an authorized AP. And we'll be able to also generate some reports here for new APs that may help to identify APs that are not authorized APs that are flying your SSIDs in your environment to take action for. So that's a location feature. This is due for release in the March release as our first iteration. So that's coming up on the second Thursday of March. Following that, we are working, I'm not clicking here very well, there we go. We are working on our dashboard pages here for Wi-Fi experience, for platforms, and for end-to-end analysis. At the moment, these timelines tend to suffer from an over-emphasis on problems within the environment, within a location. Individual clients can overwhelm this timeline a little bit in terms of the amount of red. We're reworking these pages. At the moment, this is organized by SSID. We're reframing this by location, which we commonly hear is a better way to for customers that want to see an analysis. But if I want to drill in here into this problem at 7S headquarters, we can see a breakdown then of those problems by SSID and band, grouped into 2.4 gigahertz networks and 5 gigahertz networks. And then if we want to drill down into this problem network on 2.4, we can, as we do today, see our contributing clients. But instead of having to link out to these individual clients, we're going to be able to look at those individual client performances right here, preview them without having to go out to separate pages. And so I can compare Tom's laptop to Dan's laptop, go look over at interference and see what's happening. Spend less time comparing different clients within the environment. So the enhancement to these pages will be released progressively through April, May, June sort of timeframe. And then following that, we'll be moving on to our alarms feature. Within alarms, we'll be adding some configuration for service levels. I just need to move my little cameras out of the way so I can click here. We'll have an issue monitor, and we're really thinking about incidents as bringing smaller issues that may be averaged out within an all of location view to the fore. These issues will really look at a group of clients that are exceeding a threshold of some sort. And this example is for an MCS threshold. We would have a group of devices at headquarters experiencing critical wireless quality issues, and the ability to drill down then into that issue. See that in this case we had a threshold set so that 80% of measurements for a device would have to be above the warning threshold, and some minimum number of clients out of a population would have a problem for a minimum amount of time. This will all be configurable via the configuration page, and we'll be able to view this incident on our timelines. We're also bringing in incidents here for all of our end-to-end metrics, including MOS, ping, throughput, web download time. And that is it for our demo today. I think I'll flip back over to our last font. Do we have any questions in the thread there, Heather?
All right. Well, I hope you were all keeping track of these fonts, because now we have the big reveal before we get into any questions. So also, I haven't seen any questions come through, so make sure you get those in the chat so that we can answer those for you. But first, I think in order of appearance, here are the fonts that you would have seen in today's presentation. Led Zeppelin, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, The Doors, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Metallica, the Beatles, and Pink Floyd.
On screen.
Awesome. So honor system, people. It's important. And I think in terms of questions, everyone just knows 7SIGNAL so well that they don't have any questions. So
all right. Well,
I think you're off the hook here, Simon.
No, I'm sure I'm not, Heather, but we are working towards a release cadence on the second Thursday of every month. So we will have a new release for both products on the second Thursday of every month. If anybody wants to talk about the roadmap or delve into any of the things we talked about today, I'm more than happy to jump on a call. Just reach out to your account manager.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Simon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Simon. Great work. A lot of features and functions coming to Sapphire Eye and Mobileye, not only the feature function value, but benefits back to the business that are measurable. Just incredible. Great work, Simon, as usual. Thanks for joining us today. So now I've got the pleasure of introducing Ted Schneider, but before he comes up and introduces his panel, Heather, I think we've got one more trivia question.
We sure do. And I think you guys got a little bit of interference over there, just so you know. We love that word. All right. Last trivia question, last opportunity for some sweet swag. What was the first rock song to become world famous? And again, you'll just have to hum the Jeopardy music to yourself or in your head. I will not be singing for you today. Ooh, okay. Suspense is killing me over here. Already a hint. This was written and released in 1952. Oh yeah, I think we got this one right. Okay, so it is Rock Around the Clock. There were many amazing rock songs to come out in the early 50s, but Rock Around the Clock by Max C. Friedman and James E. Myers was the first to receive international fame and acclaim. So congratulations, pretty much all of you. We're on the right side of the fence for this one. So without further ado, let's get into our next section.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Heather. And I guess I don't have to ask Ted who his favorite rock and roll band is, because he answered that already. Tom Petty. You can see that on his shirt, one of my favorites too. Ted, what's your topic about today, and who's joining you?
So today we're gonna talk a little bit about the Wi-Fi monitoring metrics and then success metrics that go with that. And we're gonna talk to Tony Goodmanson from Kaiser Permanente. And then next up, we'll talk to Michael Usher from the University of California, Santa Cruz. And then the next one, there'll be 3 today. It will be Jason Perrone with the Madison Square Garden Company. So we'll talk to all 3 of those folks. We'll do that in order and walk through the questions that we have for them and anything else that we probably can ad lib along the way. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started and talk to Tony. So Tony, we have talked before a few weeks ago, and one of the things that came around in the discussion was around IoT and healthcare, and it's quite complex. Having a number of relatives myself in the healthcare industry, and how complicated it can be, but how critical. How are you keeping up with the IoT and all the ins and outs of the healthcare these days?
I don't know if anybody stays ahead of that exponential curve of the IoT, but at least being abreast of what's going on and being able to take a look at the spectrum and where those things are, and it's surprising. As of late, we've had a number of things roll out, especially with COVID. Video visits, I think, went up 850%. So it was huge. There was, everybody had to scramble. You needed to be able to get video visits. People just couldn't come into buildings. And with that explosion, especially with voice and video, we deployed 3 different devices with that application. And as they were rolling out, you just didn't know who was going to have an issue or where it was. And with Kaiser being so big, you have entire regions, Southern Cal, Northern Cal, and just millions of square feet of wireless in those regions, and sometimes millions of square feet just in one campus. And when you roll something like that out, it goes across. You're talking, doctors, nurses, and even EVS and everybody else in between. And it could be 6 different devices total that they communicate through. And most recently, I was out in Northern Cal, and it was a deployment that was, 0 day, and it was going live. And there was only issues in certain areas. And again, being able to deploy a mobileye or even a Sapphire Eye, but you can't do, at least we can't, with being so big, we don't have Sapphire Eyes everywhere. So to deploy one of those into an area where they're having issues with these voice clients was greatly advantageous, because you can get in there and take a look. And there's, it's amazing what you find. You didn't know it was in the environment. But with that, you can deploy, a mobileye instantaneously and take a laptop into that environment. In what we found, or what I thought was a little different, is usually you find stuff in 2.4, right? It's messy. There's all kinds of medical devices, and they vary from region to region. You just never know what's going to show up in these if you go into the spectrum analyzer. And you don't have that tool set, a spectrum analyzer, everywhere you're at. You just don't have that. It's too expensive for everybody to have that in their hands. But when you put a mobileye or a Sapphire out, it's just as good. But what we found is in the interim, before they completely rolled this out, is that the lighting system and the HVAC system that have been put in created their own mesh network. I mean, you could do lighting controls all on wireless. And it was great, but it was unbeknownst really to the people that were installing it that it was turned on. And so after the deployment, of course, after we figured this out, there were bad areas. And in those bad areas, again, we've seen something in a 5 gig that we usually don't see. And so, you know, just being able to see, you know, again, people can't see wireless. And I think, you know, the 7SIGNAL product, it basically enables you to see what's your environment. And it was just really advantageous to have something like that. And then not only that, but then leave it in the environment to monitor stuff moving forward. And it just makes the doctors, the AIOs, those type of people just feel better when they say, hey, can you check the wireless? And you go, everything's good. And it puts everybody at a comfort that you used to not be able to. And they just, you know, it's the wireless. It's got to be the wireless. Well, you know, sometimes it is the wireless, but there's something else interfering with that wireless.
Okay, thank you, Tony. It's that is a common statement. You know, it's the two things, right? Is the internet down, and is it the wireless, and then everything else after that, it gets to be very much smaller detail. But we picked IoT, which is a hot topic, but also let's take another one that gets the news every single day, and that's security. And how does security and your using of Sapphire Eye, how do those interplay with each other? Since security is an every day, every minute, every second battle.
Absolutely. It's kind of unique here at Kaiser how this came about. There was discussions with our technology risk office and just some of the wireless tools that we were setting up because we're going from one vendor to another, and they didn't have you know, all the alarms tuned, you know, dialed in the way they wanted them, and with the new vendor, and we got to talking about how visible the wire is with 7SIGNAL, either the Sapphire or the mobileye. And we got into, oh, well, we do have, you know, notifications when we have rogues in our environment, right? Everybody has that. I mean, whether it's Cisco or Aruba, there are great tools that they have, but then what? I mean, okay, we got a rogue environment, now what? We know there's a rogue, where is it? It's just in the environment. We may have a location, we may or may not have a floor, depending on how granular those alarms are and our, you know, the wireless intrusion systems and detection systems that you have. But if you were able to put a mobileye immediately in that environment, all of a sudden you have a visibility that you didn't have. And, you know, like again, being how big Kaiser is, you know, we can ship overnight a Sapphire to that area and then start to monitor it. But then, you know, we can go in and then start identifying, you know, wow, is this a problem? Where did this come from? And then, you know, with COVID being the way it is, we've seen entire wireless networks pop up for video. And a NIC ICU just popped up. They had to keep an eye on those kids, and they didn't want to walk in and out of there to jeopardize their health. And so they put video monitors on each one of them. And it sprung up a whole wireless network within that NICU. And again, if you don't have a spectrum analyzer right there to find out what's going on, it's hard to know what's going on, right? But having a mobileye and being able to deploy it when you have an alarm go off in your wireless security, again, it puts another level of comfort, you know, to the security people. There's something they can put out there, they can put their eye on it, and then, you know, then they can start their security analysis. Okay, we got our eye on it. What is it doing? Is it connected? You know, all those other things that you do from a security vector, you start to analyze, but then you're more aware of what's in your environment. Do we have it somewhere else? Should we be looking for this? And it just puts you in a different posture.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the use cases that you're talking to, we always think of security and what makes the news, but it's not always malicious. In many cases, it's innocent. You know, it's like you said, someone puts a camera online and just thinks it's just one small little thing, and suddenly turns into a major disruption. And it's fun to think that everything's like a small scene from, you know, Silicon Valley, where they're putting in, you know,
plugging in 17 devices all over the network center, but it's not always that malicious. So I appreciate you sharing a lot of this with us, the IoT and the security of that. And what we maybe can do now is let's give Michael some time here, and let Michael talk a little bit about a few items as well that he's been working with in his area. And so, Michael, when we talked a few weeks ago, some of the things that we talked about is your experience using 7SIGNAL. And we saw earlier from Simon the presentation on how we're introducing more integration capabilities with our platform and some of the user experience. My favorite thing is the integration and how it gets into the rest of your environment. So tell us a little bit about how the technology that you're using with us and with other, they integrate together.
Yeah, very good, Ted. So we have an interesting environment. We have a lot of different use cases and a lot of different workloads that we have to support. So about 60% of my network is dormitories, which are occupied 24/7 for 10 weeks every quarter, or 11. And then there are breaks, but we're trying to serve a use case that's a little different from the main campus. And we also, another difference between that dormitory campus requirement is that we have different support chains that are looking after those customers. So in the case of all of the dormitories, the tickets flow through a residential network service team, and that's mostly populated by students who are employed by that organization. For campus networking, 8x5, that's more going through the regular help desk, which is full-time employees. And so one of the things for us is that we need tools that will help each of those different technical teams be successful in what they're required to do. So the typical kind of issues we get out in the dormitories are things like connectivity problems. People are struggling to get their device to connect. Is it a device issue or is it an infrastructure issue? And so the mobileye visibility to their signal experience, to their throughput, is going to help that frontline help desk be successful. Now, you could go with Nyansa, you could go with DNAC, you could go with all of those other tools, a spectrum analyzer, but none of the students that we employ are going to be able to use those tools. And so the huge advantage that we find to 7SIGNAL is that it's really usable at different tiers of the support hierarchy. It has a value at tier 1, a value at tier 2, a value at tier 3, different kinds of tickets. When the tickets finally get escalated to my team out of the residential area, it's more likely a coverage issue or a compatibility issue. But once we learn about driver compatibility problems, and kudos to mobileye for telling us the driver versions, that's hugely valuable. We can then push that knowledge down to the tier 1 people, and they can start handling those issues directly because they have enough skill to use that tool to investigate what they need. And so there's the 3 use cases that I would say that we mostly apply mobileye is troubleshooting tickets, optimizing our network, and also educating the techs so that they can get better. If they have a chance to use 7SIGNAL and look at how things are working in their lab, in their office, they're going to get better at handling customer tickets. So we have this ongoing education just through the amount of visibility that's available through the tool. Optimization is an interesting topic. We could get into that in a moment if you like. But from the troubleshooting standpoint, it's the flexibility of information that really helps us troubleshoot connectivity at one level and performance and compatibility issues at another level.
Yeah, the items that we could, I'm highly confident that you talk about the tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 support and having different skill sets and probably in each of those roles. I'm very confident that some of the things that Simon talked about later this year is going to help improve that. So you're talking about not only, you just mentioned the word optimize, but not only mention the optimize of the software or the application, but maybe since you brought it up, I'll push you in that direction a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about the optimize and how you feel it helps optimize what you're either working on or the efficiency of the network itself.
Right. So that's an interesting topic that's been growing for us over the last year. I mean, obviously with the pandemic, we've had a change in our requirements. We had students on campus in their dormitory networks. And previously we essentially operated as an ISP. They would have access to web services, they would have access to gaming, they'd be living in the dorms, but they'd be studying on campus. And with pandemic, they've been forced to get onto everything in Zoom in those dormitory networks. They were never designed for interactive voice and video. And so we had to investigate a lot of complaints that Zoom isn't working from X building. We have 700 buildings on campus, about 60% of that is dormitories. All of those locations have different construction materials. They have different AP models. There's a very varying environment. Students come in with a little nano device. Students come in with an AX210 chip. And it's hugely variable what the client experience is going to be like. So helping understand the client experience gets us to a better understanding of where those issues are coming from. Now, when we get a set of complaints at a particular dorm and we know a refresh is coming, we want to investigate the information to help guide our redeployment as best we can. If we want to detect where those coverage holes are. And so knowing a little bit about client experience will help us redesign that network. That's what I mean by optimization. And we've been getting a lot of pressure this last year to say, we're getting complaints from College 9. What can we do about improving the service there? Well, we got to find out, is it a trunking issue? Is it a coverage issue? Is it client issues? Is it just because we're running 2602s and we're on Wi-Fi 4? So the 7-signal visibility is through the mobileye, but also through the Sapphire Eyes, because what we'll do is we'll take Sapphire Eyes out into those problem hotspots and we'll leave them there for a while. And we'll just monitor what's going on, get a handle on whether there's congestion, whether there's interference. I mean, yes, 2.4 gets pretty busy, but is it really an issue? It depends on the application. Some of them are successful to cope and some of them don't. If you've got constant video streaming, as Tony mentioned, that's definitely going to cause a problem in that space. But just having a lot of rogues doesn't necessarily mean you've got problems. Okay. So it's information visibility, helping us understand what's the real experience like, and then making good investment decisions on our troubleshooting and our refresh planning connected to that.
Yeah, so interesting you say that, but you mentioned rogues, and rogues aren't really your biggest concern. It's more about optimizing or getting that level of service to where each of the students can use it, it sounds like.
And service is the key word, right? We use AKIPS as our ping monitoring solution. We're constantly pinging all the APs. We know they're up and running. We don't know what the service is like from the client point of view, because even with DNAC, you just don't get good enough information out of that to help you understand service experience. I mean, I had a trunking issue just over this last weekend, which we discovered directly through mobileye. We had a student who brought a desktop to campus, didn't get great experience. The ResNet people recommended, hey, get this AX200 module, put that in, you'll get better experience. He did. He was very happy with it for a couple of weeks. And then Sunday night, he raises a ticket saying, you know what? I've got great connection, but I'm getting 1 megabit throughput. What the hell's going on? From 8 o'clock to midnight, just after the Super Bowl. And so we're checking into this situation, trying to understand what's going on. And eventually we realize, oh, we've got this link that was planned to be upgraded from dual 1 gigabit lag connections to 10, hasn't been done yet, scheduled for another couple of weeks out, but it's hitting congestion issues. And once the mobileye told us it's not a Wi-Fi issue, it's a trunking issue, and we could nail it. So now we're going ahead to fix that problem, and we're going to be improving service for a couple of hundred students in that building based on one student's mobileye reports that actually pointed us in the right direction.
That's great. And, an old peer of mine said, operate in the shadows. A lot of what's happening here is exactly that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. One more little thing that you touched on earlier, I just want to make sure we don't forget to cover, but the help desk itself, this is a student-run organization, or do you control it, or do you have done those roles? You talked about the different roles and using the 7-signal platform. Which roles use that platform? All three?
So as is often the case, everything is driven by financial considerations. The university is a combination of learning, research, and students. And the students are mostly funded through the housing organization. So the residential network, the investment funding comes out of the housing group that comes out of student occupancy fees. We have about 10,000 students who live on campus, and then there's another 8,000 that live off campus. So we serve the needs of the people on campus. That's all funded through housing. And so housing has its own help desk that we interact with. I'm part of an ITS organization that is funded out of the campus in general, but housing has a specific area that it addresses. And that distinction is what creates this little bit of a gap. We partner up very effectively. We know we've got each other's backs, but it's really important to get tools that they can use. And that's where so that's why I call them tier 1. We're really tier 3. We also have an internal help desk in ITS. They've been building their skill set too. But we try to teach the lower tiers as much as possible how to handle more tickets. It's the only way we're going to scale.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. So let's give Jason some time here and talk a little bit more. We can probably transition a little bit off of this this customer experience. So in the case of student customer experience versus customer experience with the Madison Square Garden Company, Jason, I mean, what exactly are your expectations on a digital experience for the customer experience?
Yeah, thanks, Ted. So the way that we kind of measure the success of our wireless is we have a lot of sapphire eyes throughout our arena. We also have in our smaller venues, our Beacon Theater, Radio City Music Hall, we'll be putting it in our Chicago Theater as well. We also have it here in our corporate office. So we leverage mainly the sapphire eyes to tell us what it looks like when customers and visitors come into the arenas or the theaters where the main ingress points are. So you coming in, you open up your phone to your application where it shows your ticket. The ticket people also have their own wireless devices, and they will scan the ticket on your phone. So you need to have, as a customer, as a visitor to the shows, good Wi-Fi experience so that you can get your ticket up on your phone in a quick way, as well as the ticket people need to be on a non-congested SSID so that they can properly scan. And then as you walk through the venue itself, you don't really take off your Wi-Fi. You use your Wi-Fi for calling people or finding your seats or whatever it is that you do. So throughout the entire environment, the wireless experience needs to be as optimized as possible. Certain venues do require you to shut your phones off when you're in the theater seats, but our main arena does not. So if you're sitting there watching a show and you want to get on your phone and take pictures and live stream or whatever it is that you're going to do as a guest of the show, the Wi-Fi needs to handle that. And we use 7SIGNAL Eye everywhere throughout the arena to gather the experience of, if you're sitting in this section of seats, what is your wireless experience, your download speed, your upload speed, your connectivity, things like that. Are you actually connecting to the closest access point, or because the arena is an open space, are you connecting to something that is way too far away? And we can see that in 7SIGNAL Eyes. We also use the mobile eyes as a troubleshooting tool, much like how Michael was saying, how their crew does it. We do it. We have a team out west that we don't have 7SIGNAL Eyes in their environment yet, so they leverage more of the mobile eyes. So they walk around and they understand, how the tool works, and they can give us a good experience of, hey, if I'm standing in this area, I'm getting a lot of channel overlap, or I'm getting a lot of high SNR, or I'm finding rogues, things like that. So so from a customer experience, we use the Sapphire Eyes, and it really does give us a really good visibility of the performance of the wireless in main ingress areas of the theaters, as well as when you're sitting in your seat, what to expect from a wireless way.
Do you do anything different? I'm going to key off on a couple of things that I heard there. Do you do anything different on game day itself that you do on your everyday, or do you consider like like I support SaaS cloud-based products. So to me, every day is like an emergency day because we want to keep uptime there. I mean, how do you treat game day differently or than other days?
So what we did is we optimized the wireless for game day. So it's always in that state. So when there's nobody in the arena or there's a smaller event, we don't really tune it back down to be less optimized, if you will, and then tune it back up to be more optimized. We leave it as the most optimized as we can. And as different devices come in, or people with different chipsets on their different phones, they'll have different experiences, as we all know. But for the most part, we go off of what happens when the arena is at full capacity, at 20 to some odd thousand seats full, plus users, workers using the handheld ticket scanners, plus the food and beverage devices that use the wireless to take credit cards on the wireless as well. So at any given time, there can be thousands of devices connected to the wireless at a time, all throughout the campus.
Yeah, and one of the topics we started out with Tony on was IoT. Do you have any concerns of future things going on in the IoT world that are going to affect what you're doing today?
We work kind of closely with our vendors, and when they say, "Hey, we're coming out with a new handheld device, and it needs to be 5G, 5G, or it needs to be whatever it is," there's some pieces of IoT that say, "Hey, we configure our gear that only works on these channels." So I got to then make sure that that doesn't really disrupt my channel plan, because I tried to get, to not have a lot of overlapping cells throughout the environment. But if these people only work well on this channel, and they're on the other side, then I have to, help them out in a way. But that's few and far between. Mainly the feedback from our vendors is that they don't really have a problem with the wireless. They jump on, they get onto their SSID, they have they have the fairly same experience as they do when the arena is empty as when it's full, because we do try to separate that traffic out from guests and vendors and corporate users and things like that.
Yeah. So let's maybe one more item for you, and because kind of round it all out, we talked about rogue devices with Tony and rogue devices with Michael, and when we spoke a few weeks ago, you were a little more animated and colorful about your opinion of what you do with rogue devices. So maybe you could share that with the rest of this audience here a little bit on what your opinion is, and the big staff that you were bragging about as well.
Yes, I don't have a tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3. I am tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and it all falls on me. So when I do find rogue devices, I'm not as polite as maybe Michael and his crew are. I go and I find them and I unplug them, and then I leave them on the floor, and that's essentially what I do. So and sometimes I will politely visit the person and say, "Hey, you have a SSID on your phone, you're doing a MiFi or something like that, can you please turn it off?" But what we have found is that there are people who leave their stuff on and don't want to jump on the corporate network for whatever reason, and they just leave their device at their desk and they connect, and they, unbeknownst to them, they disrupt the rest of the wireless. So rogues in my world are a little bit more of a hassle than they are maybe in Michael's world. But yes, I am the thrower outer of all rogues that I find.
Okay. Yeah, and I keep in my mind going back to that Silicon Valley episode that they're walking around with the bag in the conference room, just center, just picking them off. So Heather, I think I'm going to turn it back to you and let you take over.
Awesome. Well, we do have some questions for you. And it's funny because as we were receiving this question, I saw Michael in our chat. So I'm sure he'll have some insights for this one. So this one is from Rick L. Do you have trouble getting students to load mobileye on their laptops due to security concerns?
Yeah, we definitely have that problem. On occasion, it's funny, some students are very willing to put the software on because they know it's going to help them solve the issue and we're going to work with them through it. And then others not. And it does come down to an issue of trust. So one of the things that 7SIGNAL did, I think probably 1 or 2 years ago, was to put up that web page with all the information about what is collected by the agent and where is it sent. That's great information. It's a little bit technical for the students to really comprehend. So we guide them to that. We show them what's there. But again, they have to trust it. One of the things we're trying to do right now is to create an ambassador program where students who have successfully used mobileye in a ticket resolution are available to the ResNet staff, and that they can then have that person talk to the student and say, here's why it worked and here's how I removed it. Maybe we can build a little bit of trust that way. But it's definitely hard in a BYOD environment to convince people to put agents on their systems. Definitely an ongoing issue, not just for that, but also for AnyConnect VPN and other technologies that we want our affiliated students and staff to have loaded.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
Hey, while we're waiting for more audience questions, I've got another question for Michael. And I think there's some controversy around one of our trivia questions, perhaps around when the music died. Michael, I think you've got another a theory behind that. Were we incorrect?
That was my guess. Wasn't it the Buddy Holly crash?
Well, that's my understanding too. I thought, watching the movie La Bamba, that's how I knew that history when Heather came up with that question originally. But I thought maybe you thought it was a different answer. I thought maybe we'd have some controversy.
No, I don't think so. I was guessing. I can't recall. Not something on track.
Now.
Right. So, what I thought was interesting about this conversation, Ted touched on it a little bit, as you look at, the global impact of Wi-Fi across all businesses. We've got a great microcosm here around healthcare and the patient experience, the clinical experiences. You've got a university system with student experiences. Of course, faculty and staff are pulled into that as well. And then the customer experience for Madison Square Garden. It's just it's so fascinating to listen to everyone. And I've got one question for the group, and maybe we can talk about it individually, is that how far up does Wi-Fi get in the organization? And do they understand the importance around the big picture? And how do you have those conversations? Because when they sit in those big chairs, they kind of lose sight sometimes of the technology that goes into that and the impacts that it can have, whether it's in healthcare, around that patient experience or that clinical experience at the time of care, or the student impact if they're in their house and they're trying to dial in, especially these days, right? They're trying to dial in to those classrooms, and the impact that can have on not only that student experience, but their opinion of the university, right? And that trickles down. And same with the customer experiences. Spike Lee is sitting courtside with his phone. He's trying to take pictures or text, and he can't get online, or he can't connect, or he can't upload images. What impact does that have on the business? And how do you have those types of conversations, whether it's just with your internal teams, or do you have trouble kind of explaining it up as you get higher up in the organization? I'm curious to know how that goes. And maybe Michael, we'll start with you, since you're in the middle of my screen, if you don't mind.
Sure, happy to. So in my environment, it's actually extremely visible at a senior level today. Maybe it wasn't 18 months ago, but it is now. And partly the reason for that is the change in workload requirement, the expectation that we deliver interactive voice video. But also, we've had some specific issues recently that caused a lot of complaints. And it's sometimes the squeaky wheel, when the right people complain and it gets up the chain the right way. Right now, wireless on campus, especially residential, has very high visibility at our chancellor level. And she's demanding answers for what is causing the problems that we've had in a few locations. How are we addressing it? What are we doing? Now, the good side of that is I'm actually now getting my requests for funding approved, where for the last 2 years, I've been getting them knocked back. So I think what happens is as the business need changes and wireless becomes a higher priority, especially at the senior level, that's where you start to get access to the capability to improve your monitoring, your investment in the technology for refreshes, and also in staff. I'm actually very close to having able to add one more staff on to cover the wireless as a focus. I took on management of the team, and so I've had to fill 2 roles for the last 18 months, and it's been tough.
Thanks, Michael. Over to you, Jason. How would you answer that question?
Yeah, to your point, Don, I mean, we do get celebrities and things like that to come to a lot of the events, you know, so it's not just our corporate executives that are there. It's people that that are famous people that come in all the time, and you see them on the TV, you know, and they'll be at courtside, and they could very well be on their phone as the camera pans along the game. And we need to make sure that it works in a way. And what we have been doing is with our Sapphire Eyes, we generate reports, you know, before the games, and we say, this is what the Wi-Fi experience is before the game has started. And we can generate those reports during as well as after. And we can say, hey, look, if somebody was complaining about wireless, what section were they in? What AP were they really connecting to? And what did the eye see during that time? Did it see a similar thing, or could have been a device issue? Or could have been, you know, that they were just in a very crowded spot and that AP was just getting way overloaded at the time. So it gives us a really great insight of what is happening almost instantaneously.
Thanks,
But it does
Jason. Tony? Oh, sorry, buddy.
No, I was going to say, but it does go very up high on the chain. That's very good.
Yeah, that's terrific. I love that you guys are having these conversations. How about you, Tony? How would you answer that?
Well, if I could for just a sec, I just want to let everybody know at 7SIGNAL, I've worked with you guys for the last 4.5 years, and all the way up from you, all the way down through support and people that help me with ideas that I have. I just really appreciate it. They've always bent over backwards for me to help. And on that note, that you know, we get 7SIGNAL gets recognition here anyway when we have patient events or possible patient events, and they want to know why, and they don't want a superfluous answer. They want hard facts. And then, you know, whether it's a software team, let's say with the voice type of stuff we were just talking about, or, you know, it's, you know, another item, but there's always a more rich data you can present to those people, the software teams, the executives, because they want to know, where did you get that? How come we haven't seen that before? Where is this data coming from? Because maybe those applications that they're using just don't have that, you know, built into their monitoring set. But you know, again, we just it's just data that we can't glean from anywhere else, even with other sensors we have in our environment. They just aren't as granular and graphical in nature that you can present from, you know, the most technical people all the way to, let's say, C-suite people. And in the example that I have in headquarters in Oakland, there was an issue outside of the COO's office. Well, that gives me an opportunity to drop a device right outside of his office, right by his secretary's desk. But then that gives me a view of the CEO, the COO, the CTO, their wireless experience. And if, you know, if that isn't important, I don't know what is. But so there's just some great things that we get from the data set that we just don't get anywhere else.
Thank you, Tony. It's always important to have that data and be able to prove your gear is innocent, or it's the user, or, you know, the endpoint. You know, just being able to show the data and having that conversation makes all the difference. So, gentlemen, I'm gonna wrap it up there. That was a fantastic conversation, as were all of these today. Tony, thank you so much. Michael, we appreciate you. Jason, thank you so much for making the time. Ted, great job moderating. Absolutely fascinating. So hopefully you guys will stick around. right now we've got a great Name That Tune session with Eric Camuli, our VP of Customer Success. He's with me today. So we're going to try and facilitate this like we did last year in real time. So we're going to rely on Heather and Elizabeth as Eric is playing along. We've got a lot of awesome gifts from the Rock Hall gift shop. We've got some vinyls. So today we're going to play 7 songs. You've got 7 chances to win. We've got Queen. We've got Foo Fighters. All of these are Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, by the way. We've got 2 albums from Beatles. This is Let It Be. And also Aerosmith Live. And U2 October. And last but certainly not least, Beatles Revolver. So, Eric, I think the floor is yours. I'm really excited about this. I have not seen the song list,
Yeah.
so I'll be playing along with you all as well.
Sure.
But I don't think I'm eligible.
I don't think you are either. I think you may have peaked at the song list. So, nevertheless, I want to thank you, Don, so much for this great event. And thank you all for being here. This is awesome. I'm going to be working with Heather today on this. We're going to give it a whirl. So let me just explain to you how the rules go. So all of our artists are Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees. So you don't have to name the artist. Okay, that's going to be pretty easy. You need to name the song. You've got to put the name of the song in the chat in order to win. So what I'm going to do, no fancy riffs or licks. I'm just going to play a verse or 2, and then I'm going to stop. And then we're going to have Heather see if there's a winner before we break into the rest of the tune. So here we go. Are you ready?
We're ready.
All right, so here's our first one. All right, let me make sure we're going okay here. Here we go. Someone told me long ago, there's a calm before the storm. I know it's been coming for some time. When it's over, so they say, it'll rain a sunny day. I know, shining down like water. Well, do we have a winner, Heather?
Oh, we sure do. Michael Burns. Ding, 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 ding.
All right. I want to know, have we ever seen the rain? I want to know, have we ever seen the rain coming down on a sunny day? Okay, there you have it. So let's move on to our second one, shall we? All right, here we go. You know, this one, I had to say to myself, wow, you know, if I play the very first chord or the very first, if I play the very first word, I think people are going to know what it is. So I decided to start in the middle of the song. So here we go. Are you ready? There she stood in the doorway. I heard the mission bell. And I was thinking to myself, this could be heaven or this could be hell. Then she lit up a candle and she showed me the way. There were voices down the corridor. I thought I heard them say
that Alex Griffin is the winner.
All right. Welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place. Such a lovely place. Come on, Cookie, you know the words. Plenty of room at the Hotel California. Any time of year, you can find it here. All right, we're moving on. All right, are we getting some good participation out there, Heather?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a race to the button, to be honest.
Wow. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to move in a little closer for this one because it's a softer song. You know, we wanted a little something for everybody, right? And so this one, we're going to slow it down a little bit. All right. So let's see what we can do here. All right, ready? It's late in the evening.
She's wondering what clothes to wear. She puts on her makeup and brushes her long blonde hair. And then she asked me, do I look all right? There you have it.
Got it. Bruce Johnson.
And I said, yes, you look wonderful tonight. All right, good job, everybody. We're on a roll, we're on a roll. Okay, here we go. I think my friend Jason out there in New York City is gonna like this one. Are we ready? Okay. She's got a smile that it seems to me reminds me of childhood memories where everything was as fresh as a bright blue sky. Now and then when I see her face, she takes me away to that special place. And if I stare too long, I'd probably break down and cry. Do we have a winner?
We do. And I'm sorry.
Oh, sweet child of mine. Whoa, sweet love of mine.
Awesome. That one went to Cord Tachi. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. But congratulations.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Well, a couple more to go in our 7 songs with 7SIGNAL here. Got to adjust the capo for this one. This is a little device for people who don't have good vocal range like me. So here we go. All right, ready? Okay, that's it. That's all you get. No, I'm kidding. Here we go. I don't mind you hanging out and talking in your sleep. It doesn't matter where you've been, as long as it was deep. Yeah, you knew that you would wear it well. You look so fancy, I can tell. I don't mind you hanging out and talking in your sleep.
That went to David from 7SIGNAL. We might have to do a runner-up for that one.
All right. I guess you're just what I needed. I needed someone to feed. I guess you're just what I needed. I needed someone to bleed. All right. What are we up to now? How many more to go? Is that 5 already, Heather?
Yeah, we only have 2 more. You only have 2 more
Okay,
chances,
guys. You know, maybe because these songs are so easy, it's like it's really more like a how fast can you type contest, like you were saying before. All right, here we go. So this one goes out to my new friend, Ted Schneider. It was a beautiful day. The sun beat down. I had the radio on. I was driving. The trees flew by. Me and Dill was singing a little runaway. I was flying.
Oh my gosh, Cord won again. Who's the next runner-up, Liz? Cord, you're gonna get a secondary medal for fastest hands to the keyboard.
All right. Yeah, I'm running down a dream that never would come to me. Working on a mystery, going wherever it leads. I'm running down a dream. All right, and here we go. Do we just have one more? Boy, we're just getting warmed up, it feels.
Time flies.
You're just gonna have to come back next year. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Last one. When I left my home and family, I was no more than a boy in the company of strangers, in the quiet of a railway station, running scared. Laying low, seeking out the poorer quarters where the ragged people go, looking for the places only they would know. Do we have a winner?
Oh, that one goes to our friend Anders.
Yes. Lie, lie, lie. Lie, 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 lie. La 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 la. The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel. We did it, guys. Good job. Congratulations. Heather, what do you think?
I am blown away by your many talents, to be honest. Good job, Eric. Woo!
That was awesome. Well done, Eric. So I've got one more ask of you as I start to thank everybody for coming today. If you don't mind playing something softly and play us out. Thank you everyone for joining us today. That was just fantastic. Special shout out to Michael Usher with University of California, Santa Cruz, Matt Horn with Armstrong Flooring, Anthony Gudmundson, Tony with Kaiser Permanente, Shannon Kurtz with IBM, Jason Perrone from the Madison Square Garden Company, Barry Smith from University of Alabama, Birmingham, Jamie Franklin with the University of Alabama, Birmingham, Eddie Smith with the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and of course, Rocky Gregory from Nike. We really appreciate the time you put in and meeting with us ahead of time to help us set up the questions and make this event fantastic. And also, I would be remiss if I were not to thank the internal folks here at 7SIGNAL for making the magic happen. Heather Dremel, thank you so much. Tom Barrett, thank you for joining us for the welcome. Ted Schneider, well done as usual. Simon Renouf, thanks for dialing in on your vacation to give us a heads up around what's coming with the product. And of course, our Chief Wireless Officer, Jim Avada. Well done all around. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully we'll do this in person next year. Have a great time, everybody. See ya.